Hello.
Heyo.
What's happening?
Not a whole heck of a lot. What's going on?
It's a Monday.
I hate Mondays. Pass me a lasagna. I hate my dog friend Odie.
It's been a pretty good day, I think. I actually got to relax for the first time in a while, which was nice.
I fell asleep with my makeup on for the first time in like 8 years last night. And it was a horrible experience. But other than that, had a great time. Had a great weekend.
Nice.
I try.
Well, welcome to another picture show podcast. The premise of the show is Madeline and I are two best friends, and we watch movies together and talk about them. Most of the time, Madeline has not seen the movie, and I tell her what movie we're going to be watching each week. So with that, let's get into it.
Yay!
By the time this is coming out, it's going to be around spooky season, which should be airing sometime in October. So we're going to start reviewing some spooky movies or more scary movies, I guess.
Yes.
So this will be our first kind of scary movie review.
Ooh.
Ready to find out what we're going to be watching?
I'm hype. I'm nervous. I'm like getting into spooky movies now. Like more and more.
Do you watch a lot of scary movies?
No, I think I was introduced to them the wrong way as a child. My dad would just be like, "Hey, let's watch this movie." And it would be like a scary movie. Like I've seen like really old 80s horror movies. Like I saw like The Relic. I saw American Werewolf in London. I saw this really corny like D-list horror movie called I can't remember what it's called, but it's about like a saber-toothed tiger. Like somebody resurrects a saber-toothed tiger and like it hunts down these like college kids camping in the woods somewhere. And I was also like camping when I saw the movie, or like in the woods in the mountains when I saw it. Very poor introduction to scary movies. So from there, I just never like actively sought them out. But as I've gotten older and I've, been like, these things aren't real, I think. I've been more open to seeing scary movies.
Yeah, I think I was the same. I never watched scary movies growing up. One, because neither of my parents were ever into them. My mom is like, that's just not her thing. And my dad, we had a whole episode about dad movies, and horror aren't his jam either. So I was kind of introduced to scary movies a lot later in life. So like you, I am getting caught up now. So I'm really excited for these next few weeks. We can kind of dive into some good ones, I think.
Okay, so what are we watching?
So this week, we're going to be watching Jennifer's Body.
I remember when that movie came out, mostly because I'm a soundtrack gal. I love movie soundtracks. Mm-hmm. Even like ones that are just the musical score and no like pop songs or whatever.
Yeah.
I love movie soundtracks. And I remember Jennifer's Body, haven't seen the movie. Hence the premise of this podcast. I mention that every time. But I remember listening to the soundtrack when it came out, because it has like a pretty banging Panic at the Disco song. I think that was like right at Panic at the Disco's like end of good music, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They really just like, after they did that song for Jennifer's Body, I think they did like the Death of a Bachelor album, and then it just went fucking downhill from there. So that's all I know about Jennifer's Body, is that it has Hottie McHotface, Megan Fox, and then it also has Amanda Seyfried, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's all I know about the movie. And they're like friends, I think.
Yeah. So do you remember like seeing the trailer at all when it came out? Like, do you have any first impressions of like what you do know of the movie?
I think she's like some sort of like man-eating like demon or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like Amanda Seyfried was kind of the loser of her high school, and then Jennifer, I'm assuming is Megan Fox's character, befriends her, and like, but she doesn't know. I don't know, something like that. That was all I knew. I haven't seen the trailer in a very long time. I don't remember the trailer very much.
Cool. Yeah, I watched it recently, and I also remember when it first came out. I remember like the trailer for it turned me off a lot. One, I wasn't into watching scary movies at the time. And this, just the way that it was kind of marketed around Megan Fox being this like super sexy thing, scary thing in this movie, it didn't feel like it was like my cup of tea. I was like, I don't know if I need to go watch that. It looked really, the way I remember it being marketed, it looked very cheesy and not really something that would break me into the horror genre. But I watched it recently, and I think it would be a really good discussion kind of around that, how it was portrayed versus like what it actually is. So I'm really excited for you to watch it and to get into it. So
yeah, I'm kind of excited of the idea of like, I mean, any chick, but like especially Megan Fox, like a hot chick who like is usually like objectified and, you know, taken advantage of in like, you know, whatever other films and TV shows that she's been in, to just become this like ultra badass like man-eating fucking demon machine. I'm for it. I'll have to give it a watch. I'm definitely right now riding on like that bias of like, yeah, fuck men, like let's get wrecked and watch Jennifer's Body.
Yes. I think that it'll definitely kind of fulfill that vibe for sure.
Yes, this is an excellent start to spooky season.
Happy spooky season, everyone. All right, so with that, let's go watch Jennifer's Body, and we'll be back with our review in 3, 2, 1. And we're back.
We finished it.
We did.
I don't know why I say that like I'm stating the obvious. I'm like, oh my god, guys,
we only watched like half of it and then came back.
Yeah, I got bored and then I stopped watching it. So I'm gonna make
But I have lots of thoughts anyway on an unfinished movie.
I'm just gonna make up the other half.
Yeah. What'd you think?
Okay, I actually really liked it.
Yay! I was so nervous.
I gave you like such like a hard time last night. I was like, I have so many thoughts. It's gonna go crazy, and you were like, oh no. No, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cute, but it was also like, it was very like to a T, like what 2009 like movies were like. Because I mean, wasn't it the writer of Juno who wrote Jennifer's Body?
Yes. I'll give the stats real fast before we get into it. I need to be better about this. Okay, so Jennifer's Body is a 2009 American supernatural horror black comedy written by Diablo Cody, like you said, the writer of Juno, and directed by Corinne Kusama. The film stars Megan Fox, Amanda Seyfried, Johnny Simmons, and Adam Brody. And J.K. Simmons.
Are they related? I don't think they are. I don't think they are either.
All right, so the like synopsis as written on Google. When a demon takes possession of her, high school hottie Jennifer, played by Megan Fox, turns a hungry eye on guys who never stood a chance with her before. While evil Jennifer satisfies her appetite for human flesh with the school's male population, her nerdy friend, Needy, Amanda Seyfried, learns what's happening and vows to put an end to the carnage. I have a problem with this synopsis. I feel like it's not correct. I mean, like, kind of gets it. It kind of like explains the story, but like it's very misleading, I feel.
I agree. Mostly because that's not how it ends at all. Like she ends like Jennifer is like carnage or whatever, but it's all like, I love that it was all pitted on her. Like, I thought that was so funny. Oh, it was so good. Like, it's funny because I didn't really care that much for Juno. Like, a lot of people love Juno and they think it's such a good movie, which I'm sure it is, but like, it was not my cup of tea. Like, the only part of the movie that I really loved was like when J.K. Simmons, who is ironically also in this movie, was like, oh, like, something he said something about like people think the sun shines out of your ass or something. People who love you think the sun shines out of your ass. And I was like, that's great. And then the other part where she's like is about to go into labor and she screams, "Thundercats are go!" Those are the only two parts of the movie that I was like, supreme, like A+. Thundercats are go. I say that a lot now because of Juno, but I really liked the writing and like just the story in general. I just thought it was so fucking funny. Like just the part where the band's like stabbing Jennifer and they're all singing like Jenny, like 8, 6, 7, 5, 3, 9. They're like having a great time while just like murdering this teenage girl. Oh man, so good. And then she wasn't a virgin, so she became a demon. Like that's honestly how anyone would become a demon.
Yeah.
Like if any of us were to become a demon, it's because a satanic band tried to sacrifice us when we're not virgins. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the description here that I just read, it kind of ties in with like a larger problem about how this movie was like marketed, which I think we can get into like a little bit later. But I just want to talk about the movie overall and our thoughts in general. So like you said you liked it. I also really like this movie. I just think it's really fun and like does a really good job of telling a horror story about female friendships, female relationships.
Yeah.
While also just being a fun Black comedy horror movie. So what do you think this movie is like about?
It's about a demon, duh. I don't know. I kind of saw like some sort of like, I don't want like jealousy like aspects to it. Like this could be like if this were fake, like if this were like a figment of Amanda Seyfried's imagination, like she got really jealous of Jennifer, or she felt like really like intimidated by Jennifer like as they got older or something like that, and that sort of like manifested itself into like her being an evil demon just because like she's more comfortable. I mean, this might be controversial, but like it might be because she's jealous because she thinks Jennifer is like too sexual, like too comfortable in her sexuality. Like I can see that. That's not exactly what I thought, but like if you're trying to like, I'm just plucking from the air at this point. I'm just like, because like I just watched it and enjoyed it. I was like, what is this really about?
Yeah.
But I can see how it's kind of like female competition, and it's also kind of like literally demonizing like the hot girl in school who like has a good time and just like is like, you know, sex positive essentially. So I think I like, feel that a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know if, I mean, I do think there are elements of jealousy like throughout the movie, but I think that's on both ends. Like I think that Jennifer is jealous of Needy because she's in like a pretty healthy relationship. Like they're sexually active and they're like, you know, fine. Like her boyfriend is not a jerk or anything. I mean, he's a jerk to Jennifer, but like Jennifer's a jerk to him too. True. And I think there's like that kind of like, there's like, you know, the best friend being jealous of the boyfriend because he's taking her friend away from her in some aspects, and like what's his face, Chip, being jealous of Jennifer because Jennifer takes Needy away from him in some aspects.
Although I will say I didn't really like Chip as a character.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, all the men in this movie, like they're kind of just like
they're lame.
Yeah, they're not the only, like all the guys, they're not even like portrayed as like bad people. The only people who are bad are like the band.
And I felt so bad for the goth guy.
Just wanted to watch Rocky Horror.
Yeah. I was like, I would have loved if somebody in high school had asked me on that date. I would have absolutely loved it. But that poor kid, he was just like when she turned into a demon, he was just like, no way. I'm like, what an accurate reaction. Like that is exactly how somebody like, you know, in their teens would react to like a demon about to like suck their dick or something. They'd be like, oh, no way. And then just get murdered.
But yeah, like most of the men in this film are like kind of like fine. Just like chill, nice men for the most part. Like we don't know anything about them really, so we can't like say they're I've seen a lot of reviews about this movie being like, she's attacking like toxic masculinity. I'm like, she's not really. She doesn't go after the people that did this to her. She kind of like leaves that for needy, So,
although I was kind of disappointed in the fact that she did like attack guys that were just liked her and like wanted to like ask her out. Like, yeah, she's super attractive. Like, of course, anybody's gonna ask her out. Like, it's not like, it's almost like interesting if somebody doesn't ask her out. Chip was like the exception to the rule or whatever, but then he starts making out with her at some point. So it's like everyone in this film is attracted to her. So I think it's like, I was a little sad that she didn't go after like the band members, or didn't go after like bad men in her town or whatever. Like, didn't go after that cadet, like Chris Pratt. Like, he sucked. Like, I was like, I would have killed him first. But she went after these like seemingly normal, like decent guys who just like wanted to go out with her. The poor kid, like Ahmed, on the way back from that was probably like her first kill. She was like super hungry. It wasn't like she was targeting him because he was a nice guy who asked her out. But I was like a little bummed that she like targeted those dudes, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's like an interesting take on, it's kind of like looking at horror movies and like the trope of like the virgin versus the like sexually promiscuous girl. Like in horror movies, often the sexually promiscuous girl is the one that's like gets killed or like brutalized, and we're often supposed to be like, oh well,
Yeah.
as the horror movie progresses. And I think this kind of like turns that on its head. It's like the hot promiscuous girl, or just like teenage girl that's sexually active, is the one that is brutalizing these men who like are just kind of existing.
Yeah.
And like we feel like bad about it, and it's like, why do we like, in every other movie, like we're like, that happens, it's a horror movie, like that's what's, whatever, we'll move on. We're only rooting for like the virgin girl, the last girl at the end.
I was rooting for Jennifer the whole time.
Yeah, I mean,
I was sad of her choice of like victims.
Yeah,
but I was like, you know what? I feel like she really like embraced being a demon. Like, she really like she didn't like panic. She didn't like, I don't know, freak the fuck out and like go like off the, like, she went off the rails sort of. Yeah. But she like just kind of accepted that she was a demon, and she was like, I'm gonna make the most of this, and like I'm still gonna have fun while eating dudes and looking hot.
Yeah, I think I read a quote somewhere when I was doing research, and it said, "No one asked to be made into a monster, but no one should be surprised when the monster of their creation invites herself over for dinner." Which I thought was like kind of an interesting take on like Jennifer and like how she chose to kind of use her demon abilities and like who she chose to target. So it kind of talks about like her targeting men, but like men who like didn't necessarily show us that they were bad. They're just like guys. I kind of want to talk more about the like toxic female friendship aspect of this movie. Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know enough about like, I guess like the conversation around like toxic female friendships. Mm-hmm. Like, they obviously exist. Like, I mean, there are going to be like growing up, you had friends who were like expected you to do anything and everything for them, because like, if you're, as a female, I've in the past had friends who expected me to do anything and everything for them because we were friends. Mm-hmm. And that would often put me in uncomfortable positions. But if I dared like balk at, a request, I wasn't a good friend. Like, it was a lot of like manipulation, a lot of like, I'm not talking about you, Olivia.
I was about to say, I'm like,
I saw the concern in your eyes.
Stop calling me out on the podcast. Yeah. Come
on. Her name starts with O and ends with Livia.
You're fired, Madeline. This is over.
Well, I quit. You can't manipulate me into leaving. Oh, wait. Yeah, but like, these friends would like, or like, for example, like when I was in high school, Again, I'm not talking about Olivia. I had like
we went to high school together, so
we did, yeah. But this was these were two different friends, and me and these two girls hung out all the time. And there was one day where like we had made plans like on a Monday, and like for that weekend, by the time that weekend showed up, I'd completely forgotten. We had never checked back in to be like, yeah, we're definitely doing this. So I went to hang out with another friend. And when the two girls texted me and were like, hey, are you coming? I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot we were supposed to hang out. I'm at so-and-so's house. But I can't meet up with you guys because I have a curfew. So they're like, okay, it's fine, whatever. And then they start like subtweeting me or like blasting me on Twitter. I don't know if subtweeting's still a term. They started like,
I think it is.
I think it is too. Subtweeting where you I don't know, like passive aggressively talk about somebody without naming them on Twitter. They start like subtweeting me on Twitter, and they're like, oh my God, don't you hate it when like people are so fake and like they do all this shit? And they made me feel so bad about like accidentally forgetting to hang out. And then like that was the end of our friendship basically. Like with them, like I was like a traitor, or like I was like a bitch or worthless or whatever. And I tried apologizing. Like I really did. I was like, hey, I'm sorry. And I will never forget. Sorry to like go on this tangent, but like we're bringing up a lot of memories.
We've all had like really bad, like I know I've had plenty of toxic female friendships. So
yeah,
I think we can all relate to it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget. I was like, I apologize. Like sincerely, I was like, I'm so sorry. I just don't want this to like be a recurring thing, like be something that you guys like always bring up and like hold against me, because that was their type. That is what they would do. And I will never forget, she said, I accept your apology, but don't expect me to forgive you, and just walked away. And I was like, and that was kind of when I knew. I was like, it's over. Okay. Like I'm not coming back from this. And I ended up better off, because I don't know, I think if we reconnected now, it would be different. Like if I ran into them again, at least one of them I think would be like, okay. But back then I was like, nah, it's over. Like we're done for.
Yeah. Do you think you've had any friends that were like pretty much like a Jennifer type, where they like you couldn't outstage them, or like you said, were manipulative and
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I almost got arrested because of this girl. Quick story. I promise I'll make it fast. 6th grade, lived in California. There was this, literally, she was like a Jennifer. She was like super cute, like for like what, a 12-year-old. But she was like the cutest girl in the class, whatever. And she, like all the guys fawned after her. And like we would all hang out, but she would like if I was like getting more attention, she would like say something to like put me down or whatever. Like she was a bully, like let's be real. Very much like Jennifer. And then it kind of like built and built and built to the point where she called me like a really like nasty name. And back then I didn't know that it actually wasn't a rude name. Like she called me a lesbian, but like I was like 12 years old. I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. So I was very upset by that. And like now that I think about it, I'm like, what a stupid thing to call somebody.
Like,
but you know, when you're like 11 years old, you're like, I don't know what that means. That sounds like a negative thing. I'm very upset. So I was talking to one of my other friends, and she dared me to slap her on my last day of school because I was being taken out early, and literally the next day we were moving to a different country. I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. I can face no consequences. So I go in. I was wrong. I go in, slap this bitch across the face, and I was like, that's what you get. I leave the classroom. Our teacher wasn't in the classroom. She follows me, whole screaming match. She calls her mom. Her mom calls her dad. Her dad goes to the police and files a report. And the police are knocking on my like hotel, like my family's hotel room door. And I have to go down to like the station and give a statement. And they're like, well, since you're leaving, like, we don't care. Like, we don't care. We don't care to begin with, because you're two 12-year-old girls, or 11 and 12-year-old girls. Like,
and all you did was slap her?
All I did was slap her. I don't even think I left a mark. I probably didn't even hit her that hard. I was probably like a little bitch and was like, and then ran, like thought I was all badass, and like reality was like nothing. But I think I thoroughly embarrassed her, and I think that was what that's why she called her mom, was I like called her, like slapped her in front of the whole class and was like, fuck you, in 11-year-old terms. So
nice.
I stood up to Jennifer. I stood up to the toxic, manipulative friend. I almost went to baby jail, but just kidding. I did have to make a police statement, though.
Yeah, I've had, like I said, plenty of friendships like that. Like I was the one that was like following them around, and like they literally like didn't want me to like wear certain things or like look a certain way because they, you know, wanted the attention. And at the time I was like, yeah, I was shy and like not very confrontational. So at the time I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like I don't really want attention anyway. It's fine.
I don't like looking pretty.
Yeah, like I'll just wear my t-shirt and jeans over here.
Oh, you got me a burlap sack for my birthday? Thank you so much. I'll wear it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But then if anything like went wrong, or like if something was misconstrued in any way, like they would turn on me like immediately and like, you know, do that thing where girls don't talk to you anymore. They just kind of, all of the whole group just kind of like gathers and whispers and like starts to spread rumors about how you're bullying them and that's why they're treating you that way. And like I've had that happen like twice, and both times
you're such a bully.
No, like both times I was like, what did I do? Like what did I do? Because it was like I just, you know, one day we're fine, the next day I come in and they're all like, she's a bully, and like they have their parents call my parents and like all this shenanigans, and like I still don't know what I did.
You're gonna like look her up on Facebook and like send her a message like, hey, remember when we were like 8? What the fuck did I do?
Well, what's weird is, okay, so we're both military, so like we've moved around, been to multiple different schools. Like a lot of times like we make friends at one school but then we move and like we never see them again, right?
Correct.
Well, in one of the cases I went to middle school with this one girl. Her family was like really close friends with my family. Like I have 2 sisters, she had 2 sisters, we were all pretty close in age, we all hung out, we were like literally neighbors, so we hung out all the time. One day I went into school and like her and like all of the people that like I kind of hung out with just did that thing where they all were whispering about me, saying that I was bullying them, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, what? And then I like walked over to her house one time. I literally just knocked on the door. Her mom opened it and like screamed at me and then slammed the door in my face. And I like was like so confused. I was like, what did I do? Like, what did I do to like make everybody so mad? I'm very confused. And then like we just like weren't friends anymore after that. But then I moved to a new school. I've moved around a few times after that. I moved to a new school for my senior year, and she was also new that year. Her and her family also lived there. And it was like a super small school, and I was like pretty much forced to like reconnect with her. And because we both knew each other and like we're like, oh hey, yeah, like our parents are definitely going to be hanging out again, I guess we need to like deal with this. And I tried to like bring it up. She was like, oh, I don't remember that at all. Like, all right.
Like, well, you emotionally scarred me,
yeah,
so
like,
you bet your boots I remember that.
But yeah, so I feel like I relate to Needy in a lot of ways, but I also don't think that Needy as a character is like supposed to be nerdy per se. She's just kind of like a normal girl, just like in comparison to Jennifer, she's like can be interpreted that way. But yeah, because like there's nothing really about her that's like nerdy. She's just like normal. She has a healthy relationship with her boyfriend. She's got, you know, friends, a social life.
I related to her most when she was going through the occult section of the library. I was like, I've been there.
Yeah. Haven't we all?
Haven't we all? Haven't we all visited the occult?
But along the lines of like the toxic female friendship, we've seen it kind of portrayed in other movies too, you know, like Mean Girls, Heathers, all these kinds of movies. Do you think that this is like a accurate portrayal? Like, do you think it's like over exaggerated? Do you think it's like a good kind of allegory? Do you think it's like, what do you think?
I mean, take away the demon aspect of it. Even keep the demon aspect of it. And I think it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Like, Mean Girls is like dramatic because it's like these girls I don't know, like super rich girls. I was never friends with like mega rich people. So like they could behave that way. Like they could force their parents to like give up the master bedroom and like they take it over. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think what I liked about this movie as well is it took place in a small town. Like all horror films like take place in a small town. But like Jennifer was like the hottie with the body in a small town. She wasn't like in like some like suburban metropolis where like all these wealthy people live. Like she was like relatively of the same class as like everybody else in that high school. So I appreciated that because it made their friendship and their story more relatable.
Yeah.
So I think personally, like, because I've known Jennifer's like throughout my life, like I can see how it was pretty accurate. I mean, she like when she was telling them that they were going to like the rock show and she was like, wear something cute, and then Amanda Seyfried's like over monologue, what I don't know what it's called, voiceover, was like, oh, she means wear something nice but something that doesn't upstage her. I'm like, absolutely, that's what she meant.
Yeah.
You know, Needy was trying to like stop her from hooking up with these band members and she would just ignored her and went after it anyway. I'm like, I have absolutely have friends like that, you know. I've had friends where I'm like, hey, like, I don't think you should do that. And I'm like, I'm just looking out for you. And then they completely ignore me and go and do something silly like that anyway. And then I'm like, okay, literally do not come crying to me because I spend so much time like trying to talk you down from this. And like, I will be your friend and I will support you, but, you know, try not to make these mistakes.
Yeah. Like, what do you think of Jennifer? Like, as a character, like, how do you feel about her?
Like I said, I liked the movie and I liked her. I don't know. I mean, I didn't have anything like against her as far as like her character because I think like who they were trying to portray was pretty like accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Megan Fox. So I had no qualms with like, I mean, as a character, yeah, she was like not a good person because she was like eating people and shit. But I think she did a great job like acting out Jennifer. And also like in a way, kind of like when Needy was like basically telling her like, oh, you're evil. She's like, well, I'm just doing what I can. You know what I mean? Like she's like, I'm just doing what I have to do now to like survive. And she's like, well, you're killing people. She's like, no, I'm killing boys. Like, I think a lot of people related to that.
Like, amen.
Yeah, we're all like, yes. I was like, that was funny. But no, I mean, I don't think Jennifer did nothing wrong. She was unproblematic. No, I just think she was like a good character, like in general for the story. And I think Megan Fox did a great job portraying her. Yeah. Those are honestly my only thoughts on Jennifer.
Yeah, I agree. I think Megan Fox was perfect for this role. And I know that I was listening to like an interview with the writer and she was like, yeah, there was like literally no one else that we wanted for this. Like it was pretty much you or bust.
Yeah.
Like they had other people read just, you know, in case, but it's like tailor-made for her and for the situation that she was in, like at the time, like Megan Fox as the actress, like everybody viewing her as this like super sexy kind of object and like just not really seeing her as a person. She talks about that with the writer Megan Fox does, and how like this movie came along kind of like was everything that she needed is like to express like her frustrations about that part of her life.
Like she was like at Hollywood producer, like, you are this one dude I'm about to eat.
Yeah, exactly. And she says that to this day it's like her favorite thing that she's ever worked on.
It honestly looked like it would have been a really fun like set to be on.
Yeah.
And like I think because I was watching it with my roommate and I was looking up the cast and I think they're all actually the same age. Like I think they all casted that, like did the casting really well as far as like everybody was like the same age. So it wasn't like a 40-year-old playing like Chip and then Amanda Seyfried and Megan Fox. I think the cast overall was really good, except I just did not understand why they had Amy Sedaris and J.K. Simmons in this movie. They were just like so like anybody could have been those roles. You know what I mean?
I don't know why J.K. Simmons was so like why he had one hand and like was like burned and like why is this guy like this?
I like at that point I didn't question it. I was more just like I was like, okay, he's in this movie, why? And then like the metal hand was kind of an afterthought for me. I was like, okay, like
well, like when he's like he comes into the class and is like talking about the fire. He's like, I've had a lot of shit happen to me in my life, but this is
No, I want a movie about him.
I'm like, what happened to you? Like, you look like you've been through some stuff. I thought he was like a fun addition to the movie.
Yeah.
They added so much like weird layers to him that it makes me like wonder why they put so much like detail in that, but like, you know.
Like, they were like, are you bored on a weekend, JK? Because we got like a couple scenes that we need you to be in. You have like a metal hand and you're like kind of chubby. And he's like, I'm there. Like, he's like, I've always wanted to put on like a fat suit. I don't know.
You've got
he had
like
a fat
really
suit on or
weird,
whatever.
you've got to wear a weird wig and like.
You basically look like Beethoven, but you're missing a hand.
In the intro part of this, we kind of talked about how like we didn't think it was like for us based off of like what we had seen.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a huge part of like why this movie like wasn't received well when it first came out.
It's funny. I just like last thing I'll say about like Megan Fox and like her character and this movie was, so I was talking to my coworker last night and I was like, yeah, like talking about the podcast, and I was like, yeah, we're doing Jennifer's Body, and he was like, oh, that's such a horrible movie. And I was like, how fucking dare you? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, like the acting was just so bad. I'm like, you are absolutely wrong. He was like, Megan Fox. I was like, I will go to bat. Was great. I was like, she was great. I will go to bat for her any day of the week. And then I because like I'd also talked about this like when I was watching the movie, or we were talking about it as well. Or my roommate was telling me a lot about like Megan Fox's past, and then I went and looked it up, and then I got really angry about like how she was treated in Hollywood. So then when he was like, oh, Megan Fox sucked, I was like, let me tell you something. And I like just like word vomited just like a whole speech about like how like the Hollywood industry just absolutely did Megan Fox dirty. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
It's like, take it back, you stupid boy.
I was like, yeah, bitch, get on the ground.
Well, that's the thing is like this movie was marketed towards teenage boys. It wasn't marketed for girls, which is like the target audience of the movie. But
yeah,
for some reason I know that like the director and the writer both like really pushed against the marketing campaign that was being like followed through. Because it was so just like not what the movie was about. Like if you go back and watch like the commercials for this movie and like all the posters and stuff, it's like literally just all the scenes of like Megan Fox like undressing and like swimming walking naked in the lake. Hall, like, yeah. Jennifer and Needy kissing and like all of those like sexually charged scenes in the movie that like have meaning behind them. Yeah. It's not, the movie is not about like Megan Fox being sexy. Yeah. You know, but that's what was being marketed. So the teenage boys audience was going there expecting that. And like literally when they did like test screenings for this movie, the entire audience was like college age boys and like young men. And all of the feedback that they got was like, there was literally one guy that wrote down needs more boobs, spelled BEWBS.
That's awful.
Because I know, like, if it had been marketed kind of like a Mean Girls.
That's what I was just about to say, like Mean Girls, but with demons. Like, I would have been like, let's go see it.
I would have been like, that looks fun.
Yeah. So if I had, like, heard about a movie that was like, oh, it's Mean Girls, but it's, like, demons, and, like, I would have been all about that shit. I would have been all over it. I would have been like, Mom, this is the one movie you're taking me to.
It's kind of had, like, a rebirth recently. Like, it's been kind of turned into this, like, cult classic almost.
Yeah.
Which it makes me happy because I think it deserved that in the first place. But hindsight's 2020, so now we can kind of move forward, just be like, no, this is actually a good fun movie and we can appreciate it for what it is. And all you boys back in the day who went there and said this movie sucks because there weren't enough boobs, like, screw you.
I'm gonna eat you if I ever become a demon.
Also, because it was marketed for teenage boys, they go and they are watching themselves be the victim in the movie. Like, how jarring that is for, like, the people who are usually the ones, like, committing the crimes against, like, sexy women.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
that is a good point. Like, that is a good point. Like, the average guy, like, goes to a movie and he sees, like, hot girls being, like, chopped up by, you know, a chainsaw or whatever. And then, like, the sweet, pure, like virgin girl like somehow like escapes. I don't know, like as if your virginity like like is a shield.
I mean, in horror movies it is, so.
But then to go see Jennifer's body, and then it's like, oh, like I'm just an average guy and this girl's really hot, I'm gonna ask her out. She said yes. What? Oh no, I'm being eaten alive. Like that also makes me laugh a little bit, where it's like, I mean, no offense to the nerdy goth guy, like I loved him, I loved his character. I'm like, in high school that was my dream man. Maybe like sans the lip piercing, but regardless, like I thought it was just like so funny. It was almost like a lesson to boys, where it's like, you think you can get Jennifer? Like the only reason she's saying yes is because she wants to eat you. Which I thought was really funny. I'm like, yeah, boys, stay in your lane. Like as they say, as my friend used to say, know your number. Which is mean. That's mean to say, but I think it's funny.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then at that point, like, was it all worth it? I mean, who knows? I think it was.
Was what worth it?
It was like the boy like making out for like 2 minutes with Jennifer and then getting eaten. Like, was that worth it?
I would say no. He seemed kind of like hesitant when he like arrived. He was like, I don't know about this.
What was funny to me was like she didn't like the idea of like going to Rocky Horror, and he was like, oh, like fuck it, never mind.
I don't like boxing movies.
Yeah. I don't like boxing movies. I was like, oh no. But this was interesting. The moment Needy was like, oh, he's a cool guy, Jennifer was like, oh, Needy likes this guy. Like, I'm going to like take him down to London town. Like, I'm gonna tear him to shreds now. That's when she like changed her mind. Mm-hmm. But then he still went with it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if somebody like was that rude about my interests, I would be like, okay, no, like fuck you, I don't want to go out with you. But because she's so hot, he was like, you know, teenage boy mind, he was like, okay, I can let it slide. Like, no, this is also like a good point, like find somebody who like expresses the same interests as you, and like you shouldn't just be like trying to date somebody because of their attractiveness level. Yeah. Also, beauty is like subjective, so
also just like, I don't know, I'm thinking about this right now, but like the juxtaposition between like Needy having like really boring like missionary sex with Chip and like Jennifer on top of this guy like brutally like ripping out his intestines.
I think that was my favorite
scene. And then she's like having this like demonic like vision. Yeah. It is like freaking out while she's having sex with Chip, and he thinks that she's like so into it. He's like, am I too big?
And he's all excited. He's like, oh my god, am I too big? Like, am I hurting you? Like, no, sweetie.
I think that was like kind of interesting because it's like not really being connected with your partner, like having sex too. Like they, even though that they have like kind of a you know, pretty healthy relationship as far as I know, as far as I like kind of gathered from the movie, they still like aren't super in sync when it comes to like the physical aspect of the relationship.
That seemed like, was that not their first time having sex? No. I thought it was.
No.
Oh. It definitely appeared that way in my mind.
No, it seemed like they were just, you know, kind of awkward about talking about it. Like, you know, when I was in high school, I had relationships like that where like, we're like, yeah, so like, guess I'll come over later. Like, I don't know. Like, wink, even wink, we've been dating for like 2 years or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to talk about it, but like, maybe. And he said like, I got more condoms. So like, obviously they'd done stuff before.
They'd used a couple like, in the past. He had run out in the past.
Yeah. I read something somewhere too. I don't know the exact quote, but it was like talking about how like, basically this movie has turned into kind of like an LGBTQ like cult movie, or it's kind of like gained that status. And
really?
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute, but like one of the articles I was reading was saying how like that scene in particular where she's having sex with Chip and Jennifer is like ripping out the guy's intestines that Needy liked, kind of saying, you know, like sex with men is boring. and like female friendship and female relationship and like LGBTQ, like queer or lesbian or gay relationships are like more fun in this context.
I honestly don't doubt it.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, I mean,
like that's a take.
Yeah, it is a take that I will not take for granted.
Like I will readily accept that one, you know. Mm-hmm. although on like the contrary to that, I think they also, I don't know if this, I mean, the way it can be received, I don't think it was intended this way, but it kind of like also hits on like female, like how like women are like typically more fluid in their sexuality, like more so than men are. So like when she, like they were making out, and then, you know, in the pool scene, like the weird abandoned rec center scene, she was like, oh, I thought you only ate boys, and she was like, I go both ways. Like I thought that was cute, but at the same time, like that can also kind of like highlight a I don't know, like a negative trope, like kind of like the fetish of like that men have of like girl on girl action, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't think it was intended that way, but when I saw that, I was like, and considering like how it was marketed, I was like, oh, that could be like, you know, taken the wrong way, like, or like, guys like fetishize that, like they already do, so like that kind of adds to like that sort of element of it.
Yeah, I can kind of go through the points that I've heard about like this movie being kind of like a LGBTQ like.
Yeah, lay it on me. I'm interested.
Yeah, so like at the beginning, the one girl like accuses Needy of being lesbi gay for Jennifer, and she's just like, no, she's my best friend. But then there's kind of like evidence throughout the movie that Jennifer at least is bi. You know, she says, I swing both ways. Mm-hmm. She's very possessive over Needy. You know, when Needy shows some other person a, you know, attention, that she targets those people. Chip and the goth guy, they play boyfriend, girlfriend, or they have like in the past.
I know, when she said that, I was like,
you know, they made out. And I don't think that was the first time that happened, if they played boyfriend, girlfriend before.
Well, like, yeah, when she brought up, like, we can play boyfriend, girlfriend like we used to, I'm like, okay, so there was, I mean, I saw that. I was like, in the past, there was, like, some experimentation between the two of them, which, I mean, I'm sure is natural. Like, nothing that I've ever done as a kid, but I'm sure it's nothing, like, out of the ordinary. So that also kind of, like, made me, I don't want to say accept, but maybe, like, understand why, like, Needy just, like, started making out with her. Yeah. I mean, like, Jennifer just, like, pops up in her room, and they're just, like, tongues a flailing, you know what I mean? Like, so I was like, at first I was like, why did she just like accept this? And then when she was like, we can play boyfriend girlfriend like we used to, I was like, okay, so like this is not a new and like random activity now that Jennifer's become a demon. Like this is something they did prior to like Chip, prior to, you know, any sort of like actual sexual experience like as a teenagers.
Yeah. And like when Jennifer first shows up as the demon, like in Needy's kitchen, and she like kind of like almost bites her, but then kind of like hesitates and leaves. Like she has the urge to like hurt her best friend, hurt the person that she's like also potentially sexually attracted to, just like these other guys that she's engaging with, but decides not to. As like, I don't know, like that's also been kind of taken as a sign that she's, you know.
Well, even like the way she tells the story, like the story of what happened to her, she was like, yeah, I woke up in the forest or whatever, like by the lake or the waterfall, and like I found my way back to you. Like she like immediately, like she woke up as a demon, and like her first thought was like her best friend was Needy. So it wasn't like, where are these band members that killed me? Where, like, why do I feel this way? It was like, I need to get to Needy. So I thought that was interesting as well. And then poor Ahmed, like, he did not deserve that. She was like, does anybody know you're alive? And he was like, no. I was like, boy, like, I was like, don't follow her into the woods. I felt the most bad for him. Like the goth guy, whatever, like the meaty football guy, I also kind of felt bad for because she took advantage of him when he was like super upset that his friend was dead, but it is what it is.
I don't know why I think that's so funny. Like,
he was just so
I feel like a horrible person, but like that's like the funniest part of the movie to me, I think. I don't know why.
I thought it was funny because like she was like, yeah, you know what, Craig, the last thing he said to me was like, you and I would make a bangin' couple. And he was like, bangin'? Like immediately all thoughts of Craig were gone. He was like, oh yeah, bangin'. She was like, come with me, and then, you know, destroys him. But that was just,
I love that, like, J.K. Simmons hears him, like, being ripped apart in the woods, and he's just like, let it out, kids. Just...
the youth. Oh, so funny. Yeah, if I was J.K. Simmons and I heard screaming in the woods, I'd be like, that's someone else's problem. Like,
yeah.
Get my little metal hand in my car and drive away.
When I first watched this movie, I don't know, I didn't know how much, like, it's kind of all revolved around trauma. Like the whole movie is, which I thought was kind of interesting, and like how people deal with trauma, like
yeah, like
people die.
Your beginning to this movie, like the bar catching on fire, I thought that was genius because like it could have happened. Like Jennifer could have been murdered by this band, like without the bar catching on fire. Like that was just like, for some reason, it just brought a whole new element to it because like I think they were also pointing out that like tragedy strikes a lot these days. Like, I mean, unfortunately, like you have like police shootings, you have school shootings, you have like, we should probably put a trigger warning at the beginning of this. We have like, you know, murder, like, you know, the media just like absolutely like blasts any sort of like tragic event. So I think the movie might have also been trying to highlight that like, you know, after a while, these kids just like, everybody in this town just like kind of didn't care. Like they had the funeral for the goth guy, and then like 2 days later it was all back to normal. Like they're already planning the prom or the formal or whatever, but like they were really upset for a couple days about the fire because like that was just so random. But like once people started getting like brutally murdered and being compared to lasagna with teeth, which I thought was beautiful, like that was top tier writing. That was like big brain writing for me. When, you know, when he, like these people died, they were just like, oh, they're sad for like 2 days and then moved on. Like I think it's kind of pointing out that like us as a society, like especially now, like this is 2009 when this came out, but even now, like we're being so like bombarded with tragedy that a lot of people are becoming desensitized to it.
Yeah,
which is not good. Like people should be caring about every single tragedy that happens. Like
it's hard though. Like we only have like so much mental capacity, and when, like you said, it's like constant. It is so easy to kind of just
shut it off.
Yeah, disconnect and like oh, that sucks, but like what can I do? You know.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like I'm not guilty of like becoming desensitized to some things, like, but I think it's like the process of like relearning that like these things are not normal, you know, like these like 4 boys in this movie being, or what, 3, 4, almost, 4 including Chip, like these 4 boys being like brutally murdered and like torn to shreds, like this isn't normal. Like this is something people should like actively care about, especially because it's like a serial killer targeting like teenaged boys in this like one small town. And then like, you know, a bar, like the bar on fire, like that, like where's the like people following up the investigation of that, like whose fault was that, like that sort of thing. Like I think people just like accept that a tragedy happened and then think that like nothing else needs to be like addressed, like, oh, this bar caught on fire, that's sad, but like nobody thinks about like what caused that fire. It could have been an electrical shortage. Then what, you know, there's like, I feel like there's some chain of accountability in like almost every single tragedy that happens. And I feel like a lot of people just kind of like don't continue up the chain, like they accept the tragedy for what it is and then move on.
I think that it's also kind of a statement on people capitalizing off of Tragedy, like the
The
band.
band.
First of all,
Through the trees.
I'm gonna say the song, like,
It's a
I
banger.
like it.
It's funny, I had heard that song before ever seeing the movie, and I thought Low Shoulder was a real band. So I was looking it up. I was telling my roommate, I was like, I've heard this song before, and I'm like Googling it while we're watching the movie, and I'm like, is Low Shoulder a real band? And they are like cast in this movie. And then the more digging I did, I was like, oh, it's like a fake band, like for the movie. But like it has like actual, like Low Shoulder has like song credit for Through the Trees, which I think is so funny, which is why I got so confused. But yeah, the fact that they're the reason like half this stuff's going on. They're like, oh, like we're so sad. We feel so bad for like they kept calling it like Devil's like forest or whatever. They're like, no, it's Devil's Kettle.
Yeah. And they're like, we'll give 3% of all of our profits to the families affected by tragedy. And like Needy's like, all right, well, what about the other 97%? Like,
yeah,
it's like
3%.
Yeah. Like watching their reaction when the fire started happening, it was like really weird because he's just like, huh. He's like smiling almost. Interesting. I think the band like itself did like a really good job of being like really skeezy like band people. I thought they were really funny. Like Adam Brody did a great job.
Oh, he did. He was fantastic. I am glad they got their just desserts though, and that Needy like went and just like annihilated them.
Mm-hmm. I love that they call her the kicker. She like kicked the shit out of that one lady like at the beginning.
She flew like 15 feet.
Like
K-I-C-K-E-R. Boom! Like
my one criticism about this movie is like I don't think that it needed to like start from the end. Like I don't think that we needed like the flashbacks at the beginning. I think it would have been more fun to like have that at the end.
Like that as a surprise.
Yeah, like that, like she just like kicks the shit out of this lady out of nowhere, and like we're like, why? And then we get the reveal that it's because she was bitten by Jennifer.
Yeah.
I think that would have been a little bit more impactful because at the beginning, like I don't know, it just kind of it set the expectations for Needy a little bit differently, and then because we knew that at the end, like we knew that that's where she ends up. And that she doesn't get killed by Jennifer, so like we're not worried about that, you know. But that's my one main criticism. But it's small; it's a small nitpick. But yeah, I love that she kicked the shit out of that girl. But once she escapes and like murders all those bandmates, do you think that she's gonna like continue killing people because she has that like part of her, or do you think that's it and she'll just kind of like go disappear somewhere?
I think she'll disappear, but I think like they're not the last people she'll kill. Like I think she has that rage. Like she had enough rage to like, you know, fucking donkey kick an orderly across the room. Like if somebody like mildly inconveniences her like without consequence of like being in a prison, she's going to like do much worse to them. I feel like she still has that like demonic presence in her, like just a whisper of it being like, hey, break that guy's arm because he like hit on you at a bar or something like that, like as an example. So I don't think she's like going to go on a rampage. Like I think she really like wanted to like make a point when she like absolutely like obliterated the band members from Low Shoulder. But I think in the future, if she kills anybody, it's because like they like annoyed her. It wasn't any sort of like act of revenge.
Yeah, I can see that. Also, I just thinking about when she kicks the orderly across the room, you can hear someone in the background be like, "Oh no, she didn't." So good. So I guess we can start wrapping it up here. Do you have any like favorite moments, just like absolute favorite moments from the movie?
Oh, definitely when Jennifer was getting stabbed and they were singing Jenny.
Yeah.
That was I think I laughed the hardest at that part. And then the part where the mom comes into Chip's room with like the lady pepper spray And she's like, there's an animal out there, like, targeting little boys. And he's like, this scrawny dude. And he's like, I can take care of myself, Mom. And she's like, do you know how they described the other kid? And he was like, lasagna with teeth. And she hands him the pepper spray. I was like, that was a good scene for me. Those two were probably, like, my two favorites. And then, yeah, I kind of like that Needy got some of that, like, demonicness. Like, overall, I think that was, like, a good, like, tidbit to throw in there.
Yeah.
And also just the whole concept of, like, why Jennifer became a demon, I just think was, like, brilliant.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have any criticisms?
Again, I think it is a lot to do with, like, the marketing, like, because they marketed it towards men and, like, teenage boys and college age boys. Like, I feel like a lot of the things that, like, were supposed to be, like, important messages about, like, you know, women and, like, you know, sexuality and being sex positive and, like, that sort of stuff, like, kind of, like, went out the window. So that's my criticism. Overall, like, I thought the movie was good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have really any I didn't like Chip. Like, I just didn't care for his character. Like, I didn't care that Needy had a boyfriend, but I feel like I just wish he was, like, a little, like, he definitely just felt like too much like Michael Cera's character in Juno.
Yeah.
Like, the
Just
same
kinda
kind of,
white
like,
bread.
awkward, bland dude. I feel like if they had just, like, amped up his character a little bit, he would have been, like, much better.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, he is the epitome of a teenage boy in high school, like an average teenage boy in high school. Like, I knew 50 of those Chips.
Yeah.
But other than that, I had no other things to say. It was a good movie. I'm glad I saw it. 10
Happy
out of
spooky
10.
season.
And yeah, it's a good, like, baby's first, like, scary, quote unquote scary movie, because it's not, like, that graphic.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. It was a good soft intro to spooky season.
I'm really happy that you liked it, because I was very nervous. I was like, I don't want to have to fight her on this.
No, I was, like, hyping you up. I was like, oh man, I
have a lot to say. Like,
I'm gonna go crazy. I think going into the movie, like, we had talked about how it was marketed, so I wasn't like that, like, I wasn't that focused on, like, how much they were, like, how sexual, like, Megan Fox was. And especially as you watch the movie, you're like, oh, it's kind of like she's just a sex positive gal who wanted to have fun, and, like, people took advantage of that. That was essentially, like, what happened in this movie. So
yeah, I
was down to clown. Awesome. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, like I said before, I really like this movie. It's super fun. It's like, I don't know, it's like just resonates with me as a girl who has had girlfriends and was in high school.
Yeah, I went to school once.
Yep. I think with that we can probably...
This is the first episode we've gone through without a Twilight reference.
Megan Fox eats boys just like they eat deer.
We don't have to make one. I just literally just thought of that. I was like, we haven't made a Twilight reference. That's amazing. I plan on bringing Twilight references back. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Yeah, so with that, I guess I'll just plug the podcast and we can say farewell until next week. Sounds good. We are on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram at Another Picture Show, and then you can find us on Twitter at Another Pic Pod. You can always email us at anotherpictureshow@gmail.com if you have any, like, recommendations or movies that you want to hear us talk about. So with that, hope to see you next week.
Yeah.
With another spooky movie.
Spooky.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.